Welcome back. So, I've talked about doing Canuck videos a little more regularly, and that's going to happen during the off season, and it may very well happen during the Stanley Cup Finals as well because there's certain Canuck videos I've never done that I want to do. I did the 15 games that kind of broke my heart as a Canuck fan. I've got a list of 20 that I've got ready to go for my favorite moments, proudest moments as a Canuck fan. They're not all wins. They're not all wins. So and in a couple of cases, they're actually ones that broke my heart too. So you can have both. You can have your heart broken as a hockey fan and be proud at the same time, which makes sense since this year's Canucks, they've kind of done both, and it's weird because I have said in many videos over these guys they won't get me again. They won't get me again. They got me in '82 as a kid. It's understandable. They got me in '94. They got me in 2003 and then again in 2011. So I'm like, nope. I've realized this team won't win a Stanley Cup. And then this year I go, maybe, maybe if everything aligns. But Mr. Salary Cap's out there going, yeah, no, and that's going to be a problem. So we're going to talk about it. They lose round two to Vegas in 7, and their general manager still Jim Benning. Many apologies to the people who want Jim Benning out, hate Jim Benning, can't stand Jim Benning. He's still the general manager, and with them making it to round two, I'm sorry, but I can't see Francesco Aquilini having any desire to get rid of him. This is what the Aquilinis wanted. They wanted a team that was in the playoffs, and they're there. Coach Travis Green, same thing. Anybody who wants Green out, it's not going to happen unless this team gets off to a miserable start to next season. Travis Green's the coach for the foreseeable future. So when we look at their top 6 forwards, I am aware of the sore thumb sticking out in this bunch. You've got JT Miller, fantastic year for JT Miller, #1 scorer during the regular season. Elias Pettersson, who took that step to the next level in the playoffs, and I think that's going to bode well for him. I could see him hitting 100 points if we have an 82-game season next year. Brock Besser, who I think the goal scoring is going to come back. I do. I believe in him. Tanner Pearson, good player, may end up getting sacrificed for cap reasons at some point, or they can always just let him expire that contract, go next year. Bo Horvat took that next step in the playoffs as well. A lot of goals, and he showed that he could be a key guy for the Vancouver Canucks as team captain. And Louis Eriksson still technically in there. Louis Eriksson, when he plays, tends to get top 6 minutes at regular intervals, and the contract is problematic. The contract is absolutely problematic, along with Beagles, along with Roussel's, and those contracts are a problem. That's $12 million between those three. I don't have that all on the board because there are a lot of contracts that are problematic, but in a couple of cases, they expire next year. Now, off to the right here, you'll see I've got Gaudette. Gaudette may very well emerge as a guy who's top 6 next season. Toffoli, does he stay? Does he go? He wants to stay, apparently. Can the Canucks afford to keep him? We'll come back to that. Ferland. Ferland, is his contract, the LTIR, is that going to be a thing next year? Are we looking at a guy whose career might be over based on how this season ended for him? Or is he going to come back? And there's going to be that discussion, and we'll see what happens there. And if he can't come back, that does free up $4 million for the Canucks, which is just I mean it's a benefit to the Canucks, but I don't want to see Ferland's career end that way. So right, and then Hoglander. So Hoglander, I think he's going to need time in the AHL. I don't think he's necessarily going to make it right away, but he does the Svechnikov goal, the lacrosse goal. So there's people who are going to want Hoglander to get a shot at the roster right away and are frothing at the mouth at the idea of him and Pettersson being associated with each other in the lineup and what they can do with Pettersson's setup ability and Hoglander's scoring. But I'm more of the mind that maybe just take it slow with Hoglander, get him over here, get him acclimated, put him in Utica for a while, and get him developed. Good forward group. I don't like Louis Eriksson in the top 6. There are Canuck fans who are convinced that as long as Eriksson's in the lineup, the Canucks have a better chance at winning, and they can throw out all the stats in the world, and they will on this video. I don't know. I think that if they move on from Eriksson in the offseason and they free up $6 million, I think it makes more sense, just personally. I don't know how you get somebody to take that contract, though, without throwing a younger player at them. And the Canucks don't have a ton of great young players that they're going to want to give up. Top four defense: Hughes, Myers, Edler, and Stetcher project as being the guys. It is problematic. Their blue line is a problem. And I like Myers in general. He took too many penalties early in the playoffs. He did settle that down as the playoffs rolled along. He was much better later in the playoffs than he was early. But his contract is going to be an issue with that $6 million cap hit. It is. There's a lot of money being spent on few players in Vancouver. Edler, probably in his last year, I would think, coming up, unless he wants to stay in Vancouver for maybe less of a cap hit after that. The flat cap's really going to hit this team hard next year. And then there's Rafferty and Rathbone. If you're following the Canucks long enough, you'll know Brogan Rafferty. There are some Canuck fans who believe this kid's going to be it. Till I see him at the NHL level, I'm holding off. Rathbone, there seems to be more energy about even than Rafferty. And we'll see. We'll see if he comes in and plays or what happens. Because fans are known, and this is not a Vancouver thing, fans are known to overhype prospects. It does happen. So I know it's not just Vancouver, and we'll see if Rathbone can come in next year and maybe end up taking Stetcher's spot. Because Stetcher, we'll talk about him in a minute, but it may just be too much money to keep Stetcher, as much as he loves being a Canuck. And then their goaltending, in the event that they lose Markstrom, you have Demko and then DiPietro. And I've got a question mark next to DiPietro because I have questions about whether or not he's ready for that backup role if they go with Demko, and I would imagine they'd bring somebody else in. But the cap is going to be the major problem. So let us get over to this side of the board and discuss that part of the problem. They have $14.3 million in cap space right now, which is a lot. But Toffoli's UFA, Levo's UFA, thank you, Toronto. I would like to thank you for Josh Levo and the service that he provided us. Chris Tanev and Jacob Markstrom. Now, they're already negotiating with Markstrom. You have to think Markstrom's going to cost what? At least $5 million. You have to think $5 million would be a bit. If they could get Markstrom for 3 years at $5 million, I think we'd all say that was a great move by Benning. And then we'd say, wait a minute, Eriksson and Myers make more than Markstrom? That doesn't make any sense. So I can't see that happening. But then you're down to $9 million. If they keep Tanev, you got to think Tanev's probably, $3 million? They'd be down to $6 million. And then you've got other problems down here. But then you've got the problems further down, too. So I don't know if Toffoli stays or Tanev. I would think they have to make a decision between one or the other. They can't keep both. And with the way that their blue line performs right now, with the amount of shots they allowed during the regular season, it might not be a bad decision to kind of revamp the defense. But it's going to be tough without money to bring guys in, because Jordy Ben's not a top 4 guy. He's a top 6, but he's not a top 4. And if you end up with a defense where Jordy Ben projects as maybe ending up being in the top 4 if you don't keep Stetcher, that's problematic too. Especially if Rathbone needs time in the minors, Rafferty's not ready, these kinds of things. And again, if they re-sign Markstrom and let's say they keep Toffoli at $4.5, $5 million, something like that, and Markstrom makes $6 million, you'd already be down to $4 million in cap space, and your RFAs are Virtanen, who I can't see coming back. Jake Virtanen, when asked about him, Jim Benning said last week that he thought he played well at times, but that he had expected more of Jake. And I think the fact that the GM came out and said, yep, I expected more from him than what we saw, I think that points to Jake Virtanen being on his way out of Vancouver. Tyler Mott showed he can be a warrior in the playoffs, which I think Vancouver fans, we've known how good Mott can be. And I know it doesn't show in the scoring totals, but it doesn't really need to. Mott, they need to keep him. They need to keep him on the fourth line. Gaudette has that potential to do more as he gets older. I don't think we've seen his scoring ceiling yet. I've seen enough moments in games where I say, you know what, Gaudette's pretty darn good. And I don't think we've seen how good he can be. I think he's going to push for a bigger role next year. And, of course, Stetcher is RFA. He made $2.4 million this year, meaning that if they're going to qualify him to keep him, they have to offer him $2.4 million. And I don't know that the Canucks are in a position to do that because, again, now you're already down. If you give him, say, $2.4 million, he says, I won't even take a raise. I'll just take the same amount of money. You're down now to $11.9 million for next year. You've got Markstrom and Toffoli if you want to keep them. And if you're not able to free up any space anywhere else, if nobody will take the Beagle contract, the Roussel contract, if people laugh when you call them about the Louis Eriksson contract, you're already up against it. Because Gaudette's going to cost, I would think, what, $2 million? Bridge contract, $2 million a year? Maybe? And again, just looking at potential and all of that wonderful stuff, we'll see. Now, next year things get more interesting. So this year, as interesting as the offseason is going to be, next year is going to be more interesting. Their unrestricted free agents after next season are Brandon Sutter. That contract ends. Gaudette, you basically foster a relationship with Gaudette this year, and next year, Gaudette can be your third line center. Maybe you sign Gaudette to a 1-year extension. Maybe he's willing to do that. And then he can cash in a bit next year. A bit. Pearson's contract ends next year. The Berchi contract finally ends next year. Edler's contract's up next year, and so is Jordy Ben's. Now, I would expect that of those players, the one that I think the Canucks would really be trying to hold on to it for maybe a year or two longer might be Edler. Because I don't know if this top four is going to be strong enough that you can say, we can let Edler go for nothing. I'm not sure that that's going to be where they're at. And then their RFAs, it's the big three. Pettersson, Hughes, Demko. That's rough. If I'm Jim Benning, and thankfully I'm not. I'm really glad I'm not a GM in the NHL, because that's a job that just sucks, and you're crap until you win something, and it can be tough, because basically you put the team together and you out on the ice and you go, that's not what I created them to. This is not what I envisioned that they would do, because again, they're humans, they'll make mistakes, and it doesn't always work when you put it all together. But if I was in Benning's shoes right now, I would be talking to Pettersson, Hughes, and Demko before next season starts. Get any of them extended. Any of them. And I know it's dangerous, and I know there's risk to it, but have a cap hit for them that you know before next season, so that during this coming season, you can make moves with pending free agents. You can make moves with other players on the roster, already knowing how much Pettersson, Hughes, and Demko are going to cost you. Even if it's just Pettersson, even if it's just Hughes, or it's just Demko, as long as you have some semblance of idea of how much money you're going to have in order to keep this team together, you're better off. Cap management has been an issue for Jim Benning. And I don't think there's a Canuck fan anywhere that will say, oh no, he's been really good with the cap. Because that's not been a thing. He's been good at the draft table. He's had his misses at the draft table. You'll notice I don't have Hugh Levy as a possible top 4 because I don't see it. Maybe he's top 6. The fact he didn't play much at all during the playoffs tells me he's not ready yet, which is mildly troubling at this stage. He's had his injury issues. It's possible that he's ready for next year, but I do have my concerns. And he's been pretty good, he being Benning, when it comes to the trades. You look at his trades, he does a pretty good job. And I know he's been raked over the coals for some of his deals, but you go back and look at some of them, and while he may get raked over the coals at the time, a lot of those deals prove themselves to be kind of smart at the time, or later on, if they're not at the time. Shinkarik comes to mind as one big one. The Vanek deal, which I was all upset about, turned out to be pretty good in that they ended up with Mott, which is not nothing. And at the time, it felt like really Mott and Jokinen, that's what you get. Yeah, and it worked out okay. It worked out just fine. Vanek, not in the NHL anymore. Mott, pretty solid fourth liner for Vancouver. You can't complain. So he's been smart that way. And when it comes to signing free agents out of university, when it comes to bringing guys in, junior age and all this, he's been pretty smart with that. But yes, when it comes to the free agent money, when it comes to Beagle, Roussel, when it comes to Eriksson, these guys have got too much money and too much term. And so that is going to be the issue for the Canucks going forward. They need to cheapen that bottom 6 in order to be able to pay their top 6, to be able to pay guys like Hughes and Pettersson, and keep a competitive team around them. It feels like the Canucks are on the verge of something good, which is good because they only have a number 82 pick in the first 3 rounds this year. It's going to be a quiet draft for Vancouver fans. But I'm fine with the first round pick going to Tampa in exchange for JT Miller. That pick now went to New Jersey in the deal where they got Coleman. So basically they traded JT Miller for Blake Coleman. So that worked out well for Tampa. I think if you asked a Tampa fan, would you like to have Miller back or do you like what Coleman's doing? No, we love Coleman. But if you ask Canuck fans, Do you like JT Miller? Oh, yeah, we really enjoyed JT Miller. And he has fit in better, I would say, with Vancouver than he did with the Rangers or Tampa Bay beforehand. So it's a trade that's kind of worked out for everybody. New Jersey gets an extra draft pick. They're happy. But for the Canucks' future, this is it. This is it. This is where the rubber meets the road. And whatever moves Jim Benning makes in the offseason with these contracts, trying to figure out who to keep and who to let go, it's going to decide how much longer he's the general manager of the Canucks. If he's able to get Pettersson, Hughes, and Demko all signed, and if he can sign them for not Toronto level money, if he can sign them for reasonable rates. I'm looking at a Colorado. I'm looking at Carolina was really helped by that Montreal deal. If Bergevin wants to put in a couple of offer sheets to help Vancouver out with their cap situation, that'd be great. But there's a way to do this. Winnipeg, I think, has been pretty good when it comes to making sure that they're spending, but they're not overspending. And that's what Benning has to do. He has to find a way not to overspend anymore and still make this team better. The expectations next year for Vancouver are going to be the highest that they've been in over a decade. Fans are expecting this team now to be not just a playoff team, but a pretty good playoff team. Top 3 in their division playoff team. Pushing for first at around the halfway mark of the season kind of playoff team. A team that's buying at the deadline. A team that's going to be a contender for at least the next few years. And so it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.